Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wellness and Faith with Wherry. I'm excited to be here with you all today to provide some inspiration to kick off your week and to also kick off our new hashtag moment. So, our new hashtag moment is Keep the Faith. The previous one was Against All Odds. So, if you would like to see the discussions that we had related to that hashtag moment, you can always go back and watch the previous videos. But today, again, we're kicking off a new one with Keep the Faith. What I'm going to do is that I'll talk about different characters or situations in the Bible where faith was an essential aspect of being able to make it through the particular circumstance. And I'll talk about how we can relate it to our own lives. And then we'll close out with our dose of spiritual wellness. All right, so let's get into this new hashtag moment of Keep the Faith. Today, I would like to talk about Moses. So Moses is a person that lived in Old Testament times. And at the time that he was born, or around the time he was born, there was a decree that went out from Pharaoh that all the Israelite young boys were to be killed who were 2 years old and younger. Of course, upon hearing this news, his family was absolutely devastated, and so they tried to come up with an idea to be able to save him. So they come up with an idea to put him in a basket and then to just float him along the river. Once he is then put into that basket, his sister actually decides to watch from afar off. And so, as she's watching him float down this river just to see what's going to happen, what happens is that Pharaoh's daughter is actually bathing at the river at that time. And as she sees this basket, she opens it up, sees the baby is inside, and it's like, oh my goodness, I have to keep this baby for myself. And so then Moses' sister then comes up to Pharaoh's daughter and then asks, like, hey, would you like for me to find an Israelite woman to be able to nurse the child? And so the sister, or Pharaoh's daughter, agrees. And of course, Moses' sister goes to get the mom. And so now, not only does Moses now live, but the mom is still able to take care of him and to nurse him during his nursing years as well. So now Moses is basically adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. And so he grows up in Pharaoh's household. Again, the same man that put out this decree that, all the other boys his age or younger were going to be murdered. But now he's spared, and he grows up in Pharaoh's household, and he is able to get all the training and to learn all the customs and the practices, and basically ends up living a really lush life, at least temporarily anyways. And so one day as an adult, he's out and he sees an Egyptian actually be really abrasive towards an Israelite slave, because they were slaves in Egypt at that time. And Moses goes out and he kills the Egyptian. So then he hides the body. He thinks no one sees it. So then, later on, there is an incident where, he sees two Israelites fighting, and Moses goes to try to break it up. And so then they comment like, oh, well, what's going to happen? Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian slave master? And so at that point, Moses like, oh no, like, okay, they know I did it. I thought nobody saw what happened. So he decides to go into hiding. Now, at the time that he is in hiding, Moses then at one point has an encounter with God, and he sees this burning bush, and God speaks to him and basically tells him that again, he's the person that's been chosen to help to free Israelite from the captivity in Egypt. Now, even though Moses ends up getting this word, it will be several years before all of this would come to pass. And so first and foremost, it was 40 years before Moses actually began to lead the people out of Egypt. At the time, or getting really close up to the time that the Israelites would be freed, the nation of Israel would be freed. He goes to Pharaoh. He says, let my people go. If you're familiar with the story, you're definitely familiar with that phrase. And Pharaoh refuses. And so there's several plagues that's sent over Egypt. And after all the plagues, Pharaoh finally decides to let the people of Israel go. And so Moses leads them now out of Egypt. And as a result of now going through this process, which should have taken about 2 weeks to go from Egypt, their plan place of captivity to Canaan, which was their place of promise, it actually ends up turning into 40 years because the people actually get frustrated and lose their faith. And so subsequently they wander in the desert for 40 years. And so faith was a crucial aspect of Moses even accepting his call. Even when God spoke to Moses and told him that he was the one that God was going to use in order to free the people of Israel, Moses actually became really nervous and said, hey, like, I can't even speak correctly. And what is assumed is that theologians mostly assume that he had a speech impediment, so probably a stuttering problem. And so subsequently, God then provides Aaron to, work with Moses and for him to speak on Moses' behalf when it came to letting Pharaoh know, hey, it's time to let my people go, right? So when you look at faith and even going through the whole process, that's when he received the 10 Commandments and leading thousands of people, like a whole nation, through the desert to be able to get to the promised land, is that it required faith. And so he had to trust God, when God spoke to him and he told him to make the announcement about the different plagues. When he told him to go to Pharaoh, remember, when he's standing before Pharaoh, he's a person who has killed one of the Egyptians years ago. And so now he has to walk in faith to believe that, okay, if God is telling me to go to Pharaoh in order to now kick off the whole release or the liberation of the nation of Israel, I have to have faith that Pharaoh won't kill me as soon as he sees me, because I've been on the run because of the fact that I knew that I was wrong. Even though I was doing it on behalf of my people, I still killed a man. And then even when God would speak to him and give him unusual instructions, from the 10 Commandments to even producing water, out of the rocks, when the people actually were thirsty and they were afraid that they were going to now die in the desert, it now caused Moses needed to have faith in order to make those miracles happen. And there's some other things that happen too. Moses' story is full of so many great lessons, but I won't get too far into that because of, just our time period that we have. We have a short period of time together. But I just want to talk about how just faith was not something that made Moses' life easier. He still had challenges. He still had moments of being afraid. He still had moments of low self-esteem and not being sure if he could actually carry out the work that God had spoke to him to do. But the thing about it is that when you have faith in God, when God speaks to you, it will carry you through the difficult moments. It will carry you through the fear. It will equip you to be able to do what God has called you to do. And so what does that look like for us today? Well, God is probably speaking some things to you that you probably don't even believe when are going to happen. Let's talk about just the things that, God may have spoken to you, just at the end of 2019 and even the very beginning of 2020. None of us knew that this pandemic was going to happen. And so now, as a result of the pandemic happening and all the racial injustice, it could seem like the promises that God spoke to you, the faith that he was calling you to have at the beginning of this year or the end of last year for 2020, it may seem like that's all out the window. But no, faith, when God spoke to you, your faith, he was building your faith and setting you up for your faith to even carry you through this time as well. So even if you see the plagues going on, right now we have a global pandemic. That's kind of related to the plagues that Moses and the Egyptians saw that happen when God was precipitating or trying to facilitate the nation of Israel being released from captivity in Egypt. And so we had this pandemic that's going around, and even though there have been some very devastating results from the pandemic that has happened, is that we can still have faith that, okay, if I'm still here, my faith can still carry me through even this very disappointing in time, even if I've been personally affected and I've had to grieve in the process as well because I've lost people to that. And then when God calls you out to do something that you don't feel qualified for, that's where faith kicks in. The one thing that I really want you all to take out of this whole discussion about faith is that faith isn't faith until it's tried. Faith doesn't mean anything if you don't have to use it. It's just like having a car. If you have a car sitting outside your house and you've purchased that car and you've put gas into that car, you really don't know what that car can do if you never drive it. Let's say if you decide to walk to work every single day because, okay, maybe your job is really close or maybe it's far and you just want to get some exercise. At the end of the day, you're not utilizing the full capacity of that car because of the fact that it's still sitting in your garage or in a parking spot. It's not until you get inside that car, you put the key into the ignition and then you put it into drive, drive, and then you begin to drive around your city or your town, that's when you're able to see and start to see the full potential of the car. You don't see the full potential of the car until you're actually in driving it. When you're driving it in your town, when you're driving it on the freeway, when you're driving it in, whatever areas that you need to go. And it's the same thing with our faith. Until we get into the seat or the car of our faith and we start driving it, we drive it through the disappointment, we drive it through the grief, we drive it through the fear, we drive it through the uncertain times that we are in, we drive it through disappointment, we drive it through not being sure if we are going to make it through whatever it is that we're going through. That's when you're able to see just the full capacity, the full potential of faith. Is that you have to activate faith for it to really manifest in your life. And faith is only activated during really difficult times, or at least the fullness of it is activated. But you build your faith in times when you have times of peace, when you have times of rest. That's the time to build your faith. And so how do you build your faith? One, you got to stay in communication with God. You can do that with prayer. You can do that with reading the Bible. You can do that through playing worship music. You can do that, let's say, if you like to dance. You can even use dancing to them. You can use writing. Whatever it is that you use to worship God, and there's so many ways to worship God, that's how you can begin to build your faith. But you want to make sure that, one, you are definitely connecting yourself to be able to hear what God says. And so with prayer, you want to make sure that it's a communication with God. You're not only pouring out and venting to God, but you're taking the time to be able to listen and to hear what he has to say in return. And then again, using these other ways of either dancing or journaling or writing songs or painting, whatever it is that is your form of worship, and also having further communication with God as well. And then you want to make sure you surround yourself with people and with positive reinforcements that speak to your faith. And so listening to encouraging messages, surrounding yourself with people who are going to also have that same faith and encourage you in that, whether it's people within your local church, whether it's friends or family, or even if you have a prayer partner, someone that will continue to be that source to remind you of what your faith is and who you have faith in. And so you want to make sure that your faith is in God, that it's not in people, it's not in your talents, it's not in circumstances, it's not even in, legislators and people in influential positions, even in your respective country. Is that ultimately our faith lies in God. And so faith isn't faith until it's activated. You got to get into your car of faith. You got to drive it around so that you can see the full potential of what faith can do. All right, so let's close out now with our dose of spiritual wellness. So the dose of spiritual wellness is going to be just a few points. One, you got to have your faith in the right source, and that source needs to be God. It can't be in people. It can't be in your talents. It can't be in your capacity. It can't be in, leadership or people in position of influence. Is that your source of faith has to be God. Secondly, you got to activate your faith. And so even when times get tough, when it becomes uncertain, is that this is the time for your faith to kick in. And then three, you got to have reinforcement. Use reinforcement to be able to increase your faith and to build the muscles of your faith so that you can be able to navigate through whatever circumstances you are doing and to come out better as well. Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for our good, for to those who love God and answer the call to purpose. And so as we activate our faith, we will see that even the uncertain, unhappy, and the confusing times can still work to improve us and to strengthen us and to make us better and to make us more like Christ. All right, so that has been our discussion for today. Again, make sure that you post any comments, questions, any thoughts that you have related to our hashtag moment, which is keep the faith. You can do that right in the comments of this video. Or, if you have any questions or topics that you would like to cover or for me to cover in future videos, you can put that in the comments section as well. All right, so take care. I look forward to keeping in touch with you all soon. You can connect with me on social media. On my Instagram and Twitter account, it is Sherry_Wherry. You can like my Facebook business page, which is Sherry C. Wherry, and then my website is sherrywherry.com. All right, so take care. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great day. Have an amazing week, and make sure to activate your faith. All right, bye.